Chapter 7, Broken Lullaby. Alright, let me at this council. Come on. No! I was so hoping... Okay, well actually we do get to see shadow figures. I'm like, please don't let this be an after the council meeting situation where she's like, so the meeting didn't go well. Okay, so we can see Charisse quite clearly. And then we've got the mysterious other 7. Okay, so we got 8 members of the council, and then, you know, Magnus is also there. He doesn't really count. Okie dokie, okie dokie. At least I got that much. Turns out, meeting the council wasn't quite what I expected. I imagined a boardroom with a long table and a group of serious older people seated around it while I explained myself. Instead, Magnus, my guard, and I were in his office with a hollow screen in front of us. And on that screen were silhouettes with distorted voices. Oh, they be big scared over there. They don't want to even show who they are. Only Charisse shows herself. Interesting. Very interesting. It was a ridiculous amount of secrecy and show. Like smoke and mirrors meant to make them seem more intimidating. Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. How do I even know the other 7 people are even real? You know? I mean, they could just be programs, and Charisse is the only one who's actually in control. That'd be wild. I was reminded of the school admin of my university, who also never showed their faces either. They remained a mysterious body in charge of our fates, but never bothered to be present or show us who they were. They simply ruled us from afar, non-human and strange. Interesting, so you have, like, some experience with this. Council member number 1.
According to our records, system access was restored at approximately 3:15 this morning.
So I've heard.
What were you doing at that time, Morgan Leone?
I was sleeping.
Then how was your access restored? We gave no order for anyone to end your restrictions.
Agent Ulrich has already confirmed he did not do it himself.
I can't say who did it, seeing as how I was asleep.
You can mimic king ranks, and you spent time with Agent Ulrich the day before. Were you mimicking his ability to manipulate the nanosystem?
I rubbed my temple, trying to hold in the sigh. I was asleep, as you may recall. As far as I know, I did nothing beyond that.
Did you not capture Agent Ulrich's eye signature and begin mimicking him when you were together the previous day?
Not intentionally, but I can't say I was paying attention.
Have you not been trained to pay attention to such things?
I can't pay attention all the damn time. I heard the others stir beside me and bit my lip to hold in the frustration.
It is your duty to do just that, Agent Leone.
Reports from the brief assignment the first guard received yesterday shows you spent quite a lot of time alone with Agent Ulrich. What did you speak about during that time?
What has that got to do with anything?
I believe I included a summary of our conversation in my report.
Yes, we read your report, and we recall how accurate they usually are.
Ouch.
Well, I try.
Answered the question, Agent Leone.
Frankly, we discussed how much I despise the way I've been treated since my arrival. We discussed that I think the decisions you've made may not be in my best interest, nor have they been fair. And we discussed my frustration that I'm not allowed the simple privilege to speak to my family as I wish.
We are aware you, in fact, have spoken to your family through Agent Ulrich, a matter the entire Guard was aware of and neglected to report, despite that it directly violated our orders.
Do you believe that's how I wish to communicate with my family? That was met with a moment of silence. I caught the look on Caleb's face when I said that. Slightly smug, a little amused.
Regardless, you violated our orders. And now you have violated them again by restoring your system access and contacting them on your own.
Does it count as a violation if restoring system access was done while I was unaware? Does it count as a violation if I thought you finally came to your senses and restored my access? If I wasn't aware I was violating orders?
What was in that message you sent earlier?
Can't Magnus just hack into the messaging system and read it?
Morgan, I would prefer...
As the message is now in the hands of a private citizen, we would rather not take such measures.
So spying on me was fine, but spying on my family was unethical. Interesting. So they draw the line at civilians, probably because they know they'd be on very, very thin ice if they did that. What a warped sense of justice. And I would prefer that my system access had been reinstated weeks ago. Yet here we are. Silence. I suspected the sarcasm wasn't helping, but there was no way I wouldn't be at least a little frustrated in the situation. Agreed. Look, I didn't mean to violate orders by reinstating my access, if that's what happened. I still struggle to believe I did it when I was asleep. If I'm remembering right, I recall hearing most Espers don't use their abilities while asleep.
It is not unheard of, for the untrained in particular, and there is precedent for you.
So you do believe I did this without meaning to?
Should we believe that when we know you disobeyed orders on this matter on multiple occasions?
There's not much I can do if you're determined to see malicious intent in this. But I am telling the truth.
When you woke this morning and noticed your access was restored, did it not occur to you to get confirmation it was restored by us?
When have you people ever confirmed anything with me, huh? I'm just gonna go confident. I'm not a stubborn person right now. No, it didn't. Why would it? I'm not used to having to get permission to utilize my nanosystem. It's a basic right and function of every human on this planet. When I woke up to a notification of messages, it was natural to assume...
You should not have assumed, Agent Leone. That is the problem.
I bit the inside of my cheek hard to keep from shouting at him when he cut me off. It wasn't until Vaughn set her hand on my arm that I realized the lights were flickering. And that it was because of me. I silently counted to 10, trying to keep control of my emotions and my sigh. I didn't consider myself quick-tempered, but these people were pushing me. Hey, I wonder who that one is.
Perhaps we should be more sympathetic to Miss Leone's situation.
I perked at the words Miss Leone instead of Agent Leone. It was a minor difference, but enough to catch my attention.
She was, after all, brought here under extraordinary circumstances. Though she may be displeased with our decisions, she has always been diligent about doing what is requested of her, with the minor exception of contacting her mother without our express knowledge. Even then, her messages were read and cleared by the top agent of our organization and sent with his approval. And who here can't understand a lonely young woman's desire to speak with her mother? Perhaps it is us who should learn from the situation. If Miss Leone was stressed to the point she unconsciously granted herself system access, it might be a sign we were the ones who were wrong. Perhaps we should have ensured she wasn't stressed to that degree. You, Saski, warned us to care for her mental health. We know that F-class abilities are unpredictable, more so when the Esper is subjected to emotional stress, which we have provided in no small amount to Miss Leone.
There might be some wisdom in your words, Council Member. However, it doesn't change that this is a security issue. We work hard to keep rogue Espers off the street. We cannot afford to have one in our midst, intentional or otherwise.
All God members will receive demerits for the matter regarding the illicit sending of messages. If it happens again, you are to report it at once. As for...
I'm afraid I must protest. The message situation was my doing, of course. No one else was involved. In fact, I instigated the entire thing by contacting Morgan's parents before she was even aware of what I was doing. I'll receive all the demerits, including hers.
Magnus, please, stop throwing yourself under the bus. Magnus... I couldn't let him try to take the blame for that.
I wasn't aware you were the ranking member of the council, Agent Ulrich, or that you made decisions in doling out consequences.
Perhaps not. Though I think I'd make an excellent ranking member. However, the First Guard may be many things. Grumpy, problematic, socially awkward, sarcastic, unpleasant to spend time with. They're also quite horrific bullies at times. But they are also very dutiful when it comes to following orders I give them. So naturally, when I told them to keep quiet about this trivial transgression, they were willing to oblige.
They should not follow orders from you when they contradict orders from us.
Well, it's true our council is well known for only giving orders reasonable, fair, and exceptionally generous. Orders that would of course never harm one of our agents. Which is why I'm certain that if it were to get out, the entire First Guard was reprimanded for kindly allowing the new queen to contact her family. That the commander's orders were disregarded as trivial. That Morgan has had her system access restricted for weeks on end, with every request for outside contact denied. It would cause quite a stir. The implicit unfairness and lack of compassion would shock the younger members who look up to the council as a group of kindly parents that gently oversee us.
Damn, what a speech. I gotta clap it up for that one. Like, sheesh, man. Everyone was silent. I didn't know if it was the sheer ridiculousness of what he just said, or the audacity of his unstated threat to spread around that I and the guard had been punished for calling my mum.
Am I wrong?
Well, he got him. He got him.
We will discuss this matter further at another time.
Whoa, that worked? I guess appearances really were more important than I realized. If I knew I'd only need to threaten them a little, I'd have done that from the start.
For the time being, Agent Leone's system access will be restricted back to previous levels.
Figures.
She will be confined to her personal quarters until further notice.
Come on, that's unnecessary. Confining her? Besides, she already has her access back. Why not?
There is not a single agent above the rules in this organization, Agent Scott. Not one. That goes for our queen as well. This meeting is over. Be grateful we are curtailing privileges and nothing further.
What, like setting up an assassination? Nah. The screen went blank, then faded out.
Well, that went well.
He received 4 simultaneous death glares for that. Well, 3. Ari just looked mildly disappointed. As usual, just that disappointed dad stare.
No, it could have gone worse.
Really? And what does nothing further even mean? What do they usually do when someone breaks the rules? Cut off their pinky finger? There's not a single agent above the rules. But I guess the council is above the law, given how many of my personal rights they're perfectly fine violating. Now I know why Dr. Saski calls them all idiots.
It took this long to work that out. In fairness, Dr. Saski has called everyone here an idiot at least once. Excluding you, Morgan, of course. And me. I'm usually an annoyance instead.
I'm certain they won't keep you confined to your flat for long. They're very focused on appearances. Having the queen under house arrest isn't a good look.
Yet here we are.
They're also pretty eager to get you trained. You can't do that hiding in your flat.
This won't last long.
That didn't make me feel better about it. It wasn't fair no matter the duration.
Man, I thought we got a handle on the unconscious mimicking. It is difficult to work on controlling her actions when she's asleep. Most people don't use Psi when they sleep. You really do everything the hard way, don't you?
I don't mean to.
No one is blaming you for this. I believe the council is most definitely blaming her.
Thanks, Ari. And there's the eye roll.
Thank you, Ari. The council doesn't speak for all of us.
No, but since they make the decisions, when they speak it counts.
It won't always be like this. I promise.
Yeah, 'cause I'm going to burn it to the ground. It'll be great. I was beginning to have doubts if that was true.
Come on, we'll get you back to your place. Chin up, Morgan. I really will spread every horrible rumor I can come up with if they don't play nice.
Thanks. I'm not sure how much that will help, but thanks.
I can also drain their bank accounts. Oh, and change all their passwords. Arrange for 12-year supplies of embarrassing items to be sent to their flats.
That might be taking it a bit too far.
I just feel perhaps I'm to blame. I never thought... Well, no matter. Try to view it as a holiday and rest. At least you got one message out before they caught you. I assume it was a good one.
Well, it was pretty good, yeah. I'm sure they'd be horrified if they read it.
Good. Very good indeed.
I approve of this. I spent the next hour oscillating between distress, regret, and defiance. It seemed the council and I were destined to clash. I wondered just how long they tried to keep me grounded. I suppose it was technically house arrest, but it seemed too petty to call it that, so I was sticking to calling it grounded. Well, it's not like I enjoyed training anyway. That didn't change that I was bored of counting the spots on the ceiling. I tried to spend some time thinking about what happened, but what was there to even think about? Unless I was being framed, I really had done it when I was asleep. That's all there was to it. The council didn't have to like it for it to be true. But that just meant I was being punished for something I hadn't even been in control of. If they had punished me for circumventing them, that would be one thing. But they weren't satisfied with giving me demerits like everyone else, so they had to find something else to punish me for, no matter how unjust. Endgame, the bastion of justice, protector of peace, the watchman who ensured the protection of every citizen, was run by a bunch of petty jerks who got their collective knickers in a bunch over the psychic equivalent of sleepwalking. Security risked my foot. When my door chime went off, I dragged myself off the sofa and went to answer, wondering what fresh hell they were sending me this time. I was surprised to find Dr. Saski outside, the freshest of hells. Doctor? Is something wrong? He didn't wait for me to invite him inside. He stepped through the door with a curt nod, sidling past me. Make yourself at home.
Plenty. However, I assume you're referring to the reason for my visit. Given that you may have stressed your psi last night, and no one bothered to check your medical status, I'm here to do just that.
I'm pretty sure they told Vaughn and the others I wasn't allowed visitors.
I'm not a visitor, I'm a doctor, and you are my patient. If they have a problem with me doing my job, I will gladly sit them down with a physical copy of the Endgame medical guidelines and a full job description for the chief medic. I am sure it will assuage any ridiculous concerns that may linger in the dusty corners of their clearly dysfunctional minds.
I knew I liked you, Dr. Saski. Fair. Welcome to my flat. Man, you look super tired. Are you okay? He nodded towards the sofa, already on his way over. I followed him, half amused by his obvious displeasure with the council.
How are you?
I feel fine. He tipped his head to the side as I joined him on the sofa.
I am inquiring as to your emotional and mental well-being.
Ah. I'm frustrated, I suppose. But otherwise, I'm okay.
Those idiots are so distressed over someone doing something unpredictable, they haven't stopped once to think how this may affect your mental state. If they had been taking care of that from the start, none of this would have happened. I tried to point this out to them multiple times, and they did not listen. They never listen.
We also tried to point it out. They weren't receptive to the idea they could have done anything differently.
I've half a mind to administer an in-depth hearing test to the lot of them. Barring that, they may need their comprehension skills evaluated instead.
He continued to speak, even as he checked my vitals and ran a scan on my brain and psi waves. They act like no one has ever done anything unexpected before, or stepped out of line at all ever.
Of course people have done so. The Council doesn't usually hear of it because they are lower-ranked agents, or they simply don't care. They do, however, care about your development.
Because I'm a queen rank, I know.
I believe there is more to it than that.
What makes you say that?
There is a rumor that I heard. Many people come through the infirmary on a weekly basis. Some are saying the Moirai are nervous, that some unclear future event has made them skittish regarding unknown variables.
Yeah, I was wondering. Because I've been thinking, like, what is the main difference between how we were treated on Ari's route versus Magnus's route? And I think when we were on Ari's route, with the decisions we had made up to that point, the Moirai could see a clear future for Morgan. And it didn't involve, like, any revolutionary type deals of, like, tearing down walls and rebuilding establishments or any of that stuff. So they were like, you know what? She's fine. We know what she's gonna do. So the council wasn't concerned. Her being attached to Magnus this time around, she's a little more rebellious because Magnus is also rebellious. He's in a smaller way, but he's definitely feeding into Morgan's rebellious nature. And the Moirai are like, we can't see nothing. It is just darkness for miles. And that makes the council very nervous. The Moirai are nervous, so the council's nervous, so they try to just, like, double down on the control. And they're unintentionally causing the future that they're concerned about. So good job, everybody. Lethe had mentioned that to me.
Of which you are one. Which puts you at the epicenter of their anxiety.
Of course. In other words, the council's paranoia is coming from the Moirai? I encountered one of them, sort of recent-ish. She mentioned something about the future as well. But she was vague, and she said that my connections to the outside are tying me down or influencing me negatively. I don't know how they intend to solve that. I can't sever my connections to my family, and I wouldn't even if it was possible to cut ties.
It is natural to hold tight to connections with others. Humans, in fact, require such connections for healthy emotional development. In some ways, that the rest of us have our ties primarily within Endgame becomes a handicap, and a way to keep our focus here. When everything we care about is here, why would we turn our thoughts elsewhere? Everything we do becomes about keeping this place protected. This is true even for me.
If my lack of connections was going to be this big a problem, they should have considered other options beyond yanking me off the street and dragging me here.
I agree. Yet they did not.
I just don't know how to fix the current situation. If they want me to be happy severing all ties with the outside and being obedient, placing their orders above even my family, and if they're unwilling to compromise on that, then we're at an impasse.
I hope you can come up with a compromise soon.
So do I.
Now to the topic of your using Psi while unconscious. During your previous stay in the infirmary, we saw you utilizing Psi while in a state of semi-unconsciousness and, in at least one instance, full unconsciousness. At the time, I believed it to be a side effect of your power surge. It appears I was mistaken.
I assume if there was a way to control it, you would have administered it at that time.
Correct. Generally speaking, when an Esper sleeps, the brain releases neurotransmitters to send their thorax system into dormancy. This is similar to how the brain prevents muscle movement during sleep as well. However, there is no organic creature that functions perfectly all the time. Therefore, there are instances when the thorax system is not disabled as it should be. Normally, we could get you to wear a psi inhibitor during sleep to disrupt any psi waves being produced. As you well know, that method will not work on you. The Council has asked me to administer a medication that targets the neurotransmitters we believe are responsible for thorax system activity, blocking the brain from producing them.
If there's a medication like that, why didn't you give it to me when I was power surging your infirmary into a frenzy?
Because it is an experimental drug, not yet cleared for medical use.
Ah. So of course you should administer it to me as a method of control.
They suggested you become a part of the small clinical trial we are currently running. However, I will not administer it without your consent. I have relayed this to the Council. They indicated they are unhappy with this decision.
You are an amazing guy, and I cannot wait to do your route. You're just fantastic in every way.
I told them I don't particularly care. My first duty is to my patient. No one at this facility is obligated to become part of an experiment without consent. That includes you.
How experimental is this treatment? You mentioned a clinical trial. Is that real? Or am I the clinical trial?
It's been in development for over 2 years. It is going through a second clinical trial with a small number of adult Espers who have trouble sustaining thoracic dormancy while asleep. None of those Espers are F-class. All have persistent somnamentus.
Somnamentus? Sleep... psychicking?
As far as awkward layman's terms go, I suppose that is apt.
Do you think I should do it?
Morgan, it is your body, so you must decide. However, there's no medical benefit to this treatment. The only perceived benefits would be to your standing before the Council. Meanwhile, there are potential risks and side effects. Some experience a delay for their abilities to return. Others experience power surges as their brains compensate for the suppression of neurotransmitters by producing an abundance all at once. This drug has never been tested on an F-class, nor on an Esper of your caliber. While I believe the risks are minimal, we cannot say for certain what the result will be, assuming it has any effect at all.
I could show the Council I was being flexible, attempt to show I wasn't trying to be a troublemaker. Or I could refuse to bend and show them I wouldn't be easy to manipulate. But that would solidify my position as a troublemaker, and would almost definitely make the upcoming days unbearable in some way or another. Was making a statement worth that? You gotta pick your battles with these guys, I think. Besides, we don't actually know if you did it in your sleep, first of all. So even if this controlled you in your sleep, your system access could just come back anyway. In which case, then they're like, I need to admit that we accused you without any evidence and we were just being dumb. So, you know what? I say we accept. It shows we have nothing to hide. We were being truthful about we were asleep at the time. So, let's just go for it. And then if we have a power surge and we blow the building up, well, that's their own fault, isn't it? In the end, I suspected it would be better to accept. They were trying to play hardball, but if I responded in kind, the situation would only continue to escalate. After all, if I chose to be difficult, I was proving their point, which would undoubtedly make them dig their heels in. If I complied with their requests, then they, appropriately, looked like the ones in the wrong. But more than that, it would show there was no need to be so wary of me. And it wasn't like there was any drawback to suppressing my abilities for a little while. I wasn't going to be using them. Saski's face is like, whoa. Fine. I'll do it.
Are you certain?
Are there any dangerous side effects?
One might argue that a power surge is dangerous. However, the scale of what we've seen in trials is minor. There is an 87% efficacy in N-class Espers. But, and I must stress this, we can't say for sure what the results will look like for you. The effects last 8 hours for most people, longer for others. I'll need to administer the dose personally, so I'll return this evening. It would be wise to administer it shortly before you sleep. Though you're not officially a part of the in-progress trial, if you can keep records of any observations while taking this medication, it would be of some interest to our medical research department.
Of course. I'll take note of anything.
If anything happens, of course you will contact me. I assume they at least left your console active.
I think so.
Excellent.
Thank you for coming to check on me.
Of course. I'll return in a few hours. If you change your mind, contact the medical ward and ask to speak to me.
I will. Thanks.
Then I'll be leaving for now.
I expected to be left alone, but as he was leaving, Vanessa showed up carrying a small box. I'm getting an awful lot of visitors for someone under house arrest.
You need food, so I'm not violating orders. You're being confined to your flat. It's not a hunger strike.
I watched her set the box in the kitchen. You know, there is food here. The Vaughn wink. I love it.
I had no way of knowing that, did I?
I see. Everyone else circumvents orders, and it's fine. I do it, and the entire solar system is at risk.
Oh, trust me. Magnus tried to convince them you didn't circumvent orders. You, after all, never directly sent a message to your parents. As you can see, they didn't buy it.
Are they going to buy that I needed food?
Who knows?
Hopefully no one comes to drag you away and give you demerits. Vaughn snickered.
I think the threat of demerits isn't as intimidating as they wish it was.
She set a book alongside the box she left in the kitchen.
Courtesy of Magnus. You can read it later. He thought it might be useful.
Well, thank you for the book gift. Useful for what? Hitting someone over the head with, probably. What even happens when you get too many demerits?
You lose privileges, like holidays, or you can get fined. Or you can get shit jobs for a while. Or worst case, you spend a week in the guardhouse. Esper jail.
Know that firsthand?
Well, yeah. Sorry, my record isn't squeaky clean. Neither is Caleb's. Or Mara's. Ari's probably the only one on the guard who's never even contemplated stepping outside the line.
Imagine.
But they're used to us. We've been here our whole lives. They've watched our entire careers. There are decades of behavior records to check if they need to. And they know our ability levels very well. There is a level of comfort that comes with that.
There are decades of behavior records on me they can pull straight from New Albion. I think they'd find I'm usually quite well behaved. Except the one incident with the fountain. And to be fair, there were extenuating circumstances. In a way, it was self-defense.
Oh, I'm sure they can see you were a very dutiful student with excellent grades and not a single mark on your record. Before you came here. But let's examine your time with us. And I'm not blaming you, I'm just pointing out, you brought down a building on Caleb and Ari with one of the strongest cybursts we've seen. You evaded them for hours. You were found with Jack, someone who defected from Endgame and joined up with one of our less friendly adversaries. You destroyed at least one infirmary room, elbowed our highest ranked agent in the head and tried to escape, then tried to escape again, multiple times, including using techniques our previous queen never mastered, even after years of training. You've demonstrated, in fact, a penchant for mimicking abilities they thought queens couldn't mimic. Ari's teleportation, Ari's space distortion, Magnus's technokinesis.
And you simultaneously destroyed a practice room, shower room, and VR simulation room with ease. With Magnus's help, circumvented orders, and turned on your system access again in your sleep.
Okay, I hear that. But Ari drove a car into a wall and created an explosion in the middle of a city. Also, he and Caleb are guilty of kidnapping and causing a high-speed car chase also in the middle of a city, and a disturbance in that cafe where they found me.
To be fair, they had permission. I believe Ari has consistently pointed out that apprehending unregistered espers is part of what we do.
I deeply apologize for not asking permission before I destroyed a building.
Joking aside, I think it worries them to see what you're capable of without training, and when you're not in control of yourself. You manipulated the nanosystem in your sleep. Manipulating the nanosystem isn't easy for king ranks when they're awake. I suspect they're concerned about what you could do if you were actually trying, and if you weren't completely loyal.
Is there some history of agents going rogue and trying to topple Endgame?
No? And yes. I mean, it's happened. There are agents that make bad choices, that go rogue, as you say, that defect the way Jack did. I wouldn't say it happens all the time, but it happens. Often, the later someone comes in, the more likely there could be issues. You came in late and unwillingly, and every day it becomes clear how much potential you hold.
I get it. It's just weird to think that to the Council I'm some scary monster. I'm just trying to be me. As much of the normal me as possible. This all seems like it's just punishment for letting myself stay out there. I don't like this feeling of them acting entitled to me. Sorry, I don't mean to rehash all of this. I'm just at a loss and I don't know how to fix it. I don't want to criticize a group I haven't been a part of for long. But if this is the way a council of non-espers runs things, maybe they need more espers on the council to balance things out. Because, no offense, but they're kind of lousy at running this place if how they've handled my arrival is any example.
It would be great if changing things was that simple, but it never is. Look, I need to run. I'll come check on you later.
Get in line.
I hate lines, so whoever else is going to check on you better make way.
She grinned and gave me a quick hug before letting herself out. Aw, Vaughn. I huffed a sigh and went back to the living room, the book she brought me catching my eye. Meditative Techniques. Magnus sent me this? Really? I opened the book with a heavy sigh. There was something written on the interior cover. It was a message from Magnus. Ah. I was like, a physical book, something they can't track. What? And I knew he was going to put a secret message in there. Interesting.
They insisted on turning the surveillance back on in your apartment. I've drawn where the cameras are and the angles they cover. The only one in your room that is on covers the bed. Hopefully enough to show evidence you are sleeping should there be a repeat of the previous event. There isn't someone constantly watching everything. I'm the only one with access to the cameras, but they are recording. So if something happens, we can review them. I promise I'm not spying. Morgan, don't feel there is nothing you can do. There is an appellate board. You can lodge a complaint and appeal this decision to them.
I clenched my jaw hard enough it hurt and did my absolute best to not slam the book shut. If Magnus hadn't told me, I would never even know. I mean, he's giving us, like, something that, you know, we can at least try. Maybe it's fruitless, but you know what? It's probably more productive than trying to smash all the cameras in our apartment. So, let's do that. This wasn't right. Just because they were the council didn't mean it was a carte blanche to trample every right I had. I didn't recall signing my rights away when I joined. I was going to fight back. politely, for now. To start, I'd work on a letter of formal complaint. If there was an appellate board, they were going to hear from me. But there was no way they were getting a simple letter. No, if I was going to do this, it would be formal and detailed. More of an essay than a letter. Time to use all that schooling we got to use. Might as well outline every single violation of my rights. Even though I knew that ultimately they'd dismiss the whole thing because I hid the fact I was an Esper. At this point, rather than kicking myself for hiding it, I was kicking myself for getting caught. I should never have admitted to Magnus that I knew I was an Esper. Then they wouldn't be able to hold it over me. Either way, I'd been waffling for a while now. But this time I was drawing a line. If the complaint and appeal did no good, I would take more extreme measures. In the worst case, well, Jack had left. If I had to, I would find a way to do the same. I couldn't stay here under these conditions. I really could not. The letter occupied my attention until Saski showed up to give me the dose of medication we had discussed. It was earlier than I expected, still several hours before bed. But he was on call and didn't know if he'd be able to stop by later. That meant it would wear off earlier as well, but there was nothing to be done about it. His visit was what reminded me Vaughn had brought food I'd never bothered to eat. After that, I gave the appellate letter one last glance over, pleased that I could sound appropriately offended and indignant by the council's actions. Years of college essays for picky professors had honed my ability to sound formal and polite, but it was good to let at least a little emotion show through just to make it clear I was quite put out. I wasn't sure how much good it would do, but I decided to sleep on it and give it another glance in the morning before sending it. When sleep eluded me, I realized how much of a frustration it was to be stuck in my flat and unable to go for a walk. I tossed and turned for hours, trying to find a comfortable place, trying to cajole myself to just fall asleep. I got up and read for a while, and eventually was back in bed curled up sort of half asleep and half awake. That was how I noticed the shuffling around in my room. It was a part of my dream as well, but in that way where part of my brain knew it was real. That was the only reason I didn't wake up right away. Hello, twins? Creepy twins. When I opened my eyes and saw several people in black clothes leaning over me, I let out a panicked shriek, kicking with both legs. I caught one of the black suits in the gut, and he went down with a pained grunt. Catching the other's neck in the crook of my elbow as I scrambled out of bed, I sent him to the floor as well. Nice! As soon as I stood on shaky, uncertain legs, I realized I must have been drugged. My head was swimming, and my vision was dotted with black spots. What did you do to me? My words were slurred as well. There were medical instruments strewn on the floor, 2 empty vials. What in the world? Oh, they're doing the brain scan. No! Eee! This is terrifying.
Lethe, do it.
Ugh, Lethe, why? Why?
It will be difficult when she's awake.
I froze at the sound of that familiar voice. She was near the door, much further from me than the others.
They said she can't have any memory of this. You were supposed to give her the anesthetic so I wouldn't be needed. She woke up before I could finish the dose.
I asked what's going on! My voice rose to a frantic pitch, slurred though it was. I was gripping the bedside table tightly to keep myself upright. Magnus, I hope you're watching right now.
Don't worry. Given your lack of skill, you won't remember any of this later anyway.
She held a hand out, taking a step closer. No! I flung outward with my scion instinct, forgetting too late that I'd taken medication to suppress it. The first explosion was weak, just enough to startle them all, but not much else. Lethe's sigh, a deep blood red, swirled its way towards me like an ominous cloud. I tried to lash out again, but I could sense the thing blocking my sigh, like a thin membrane I could snap if I tried. Why do I feel like one of the bad endings is going to happen during this moment? Hopefully it's not now. I didn't know what they were planning, but I needed my abilities. For the first time in my life, I desperately needed that power I had hated so much until now. I never wanted it before, but now I wanted it back. They tried to take it so they could pin me down again somehow. I couldn't... When Lethe's sigh latched into me, I held my arms over my eyes and shouted. Something inside of me tore away, or shattered like glass. There was a sense of never being able to go back this time, but I knew deep down I'd passed that point long ago. This time the violent explosion outward rocked the room and flung Lethe into the far wall. The lights flickered on briefly, then off. Lethe struggled back to her feet. One of the black suits snatched up their equipment, and seeing a scanner among the items, I lifted a hand. Sparks shot out of it as it shorted out. Get out! Get out! Sparks lanced up the wall with a sizzling crack. The lights blazed impossibly bright before the room went dark. The window cracked, wood splintered, and several books flung themselves out of the bookcase. The foot of my bed lifted, then slammed into the floor again. That is terrifying. There was something building inside me, like energy that had been pent up too long. Fueled by rage, by desperation, by every indignity I'd suffered since my arrival, I finally just let all that pent-up energy release. It tore away from me with wild, dangerous speed, ripping through the floors and walls. It shattered glass, shredded carpet, slashed through skin. I sensed it injure the black suits before Lethe could get a shield in place. The room shuddered again. There was a familiar whoop, whoop of the defense alarm. Beyond the thin, frantic wail of my sigh, I heard them leaving. Then I sank to the floor and a pained sob finally escaped. Why were they doing this? Why? I gripped my head, backing into a corner and sliding down the wall. My sphere, I expanded through my apartment, making sure I was alone. And I sat in the dark just waiting. And waiting.